You're watching Inside Automotive with Jim Fitzpatrick.
Hey everyone, Jim Fitzpatrick. Thanks so much for joining us this morning on Inside Automotive. We got a special show for you today as the upcoming presidential election approaches. Many in the industry are keeping a close eye on how potential policy changes could impact their operations. I think you know what I'm talking about. Today we're joined by the president and CEO of Celebrity Motorcar, a celebrity in his own right, I might add, Mr. Tom Maoli, to dive further into this and how the election could shape the future of retail automotive. I know that every dealer listening right now is like, yep, you're exactly right. We got to get this thing right. So the reason we wanted to bring you in, Tom, and by the way, welcome into the show, is because we know that you're close to President Trump. You have your hand on the pulse of this. You're very passionate about who needs to be leading the country and why. Obviously, we are just a couple of weeks away right now from the presidential election. And it's a tight race, surprisingly to me, but it's a tight race. I'm going to give you an opportunity here. Why do people need to pull that lever when they go in to vote for Donald J. Trump?
Well, listen, thanks for having me. Great to see you, Jim. And I can only tell you that I will be at Mar-a-Lago on election night.
That's pretty cool.
So it's exciting.
That's
to
ground
be there.
zero.
We're just done. Yeah, absolutely. And, listen, this is one of the most critical elections in my lifetime that I could ever remember. And I think, listen, for the automotive industry, it's clear. We have two sides of the fence here. We have drill, baby, drill, and we have electric car mandates that are going to change the entire automotive industry, destroy production, destroy employment, destroy everything that has been built, since the beginning of the automobile and since dealerships have been established. So I think that's why it's so critical here. And, listen, President Trump has said one of the first bills he will sign if elected into office is to eliminate the electric vehicle mandate. It's clear that he understands the business. He understands how this affects the economy, the employment, the states, and the people that are involved in the automotive industry. It's billions and billions of dollars to taxpayers, that taxpayer dollars that come into these municipalities, to the states, through sales tax, and through the federal government. And he gets it all, and he understands it. And listen, look what just happened with the labor unions. They're down there fighting, and one of the things on the porch that they were fighting for was not only a pay raise, they were fighting to stop technology from coming in and taking over their labor.
Yeah.
And that's what's going to happen if Kamala Harris gets in. That's what's going to happen. She's going to push this mandate further than it is today, and we're going to see mass destruction of employment in the automobile industry, which is going to be devastating. That's why everybody needs to get out there and vote, and I think they need to pull the lever for Trump.
And then, of course, the corporate tax cuts that are set to expire, we would see those renewed, right?
Correct. You're going to see that. You're going to see all kinds of, electric vehicles coming in from overseas. They're going to, if they can't get them through the U.S., they're going to come through Mexico through our trade pact, and they're going to flood our market. And margins are going to evaporate. The fixed ops is going to evaporate. Employment's going to crater in this industry, and dealers are not going to be able to keep their stores open. And while that may seem interesting to the manufacturers don't have the wherewithal to do direct online ordering, and it's going to be devastating.
So let me ask you: the tariffs are still kind of a bone of contention. Many economists and such have said this thing's going to be a tax on us. It's not. It's going to have unintended consequences that Trump wants. What's your take on tariffs for the vehicles that are coming in, for parts that are coming in, other products? Where do you stand on that? What's a good explanation as to why that would be okay?
There's always two sides to the story, and there's always some happy medium. And I think it's a happy medium. I think there has to be some tariffs. We have to level the playing field. We have to keep the U.S. automakers in business and up and running. But on the flip side is you can't over tariff these people, because they're still going to bring their vehicles in. People want Hondas, Toyotas, and Lexuses, and BMWs, and they're going to, and ultimately that gets pushed down to the consumer. Right. And prices go up, and it causes inflation. So we got to find that happy medium where we can just balance. And listen, everything in life is a balance, right? And our economic cycle and what we're dealing with now is a balance, and it's out of balance, and that's the problem.
Yeah, no question about it. In terms of the tax cuts, and I'm just playing devil's advocate here, but many people have said, well, that's what led to an incredible deficit and national debt. What is your take on that?
Well, listen, yes, it leads to deficit and debt, but our country's been running on a deficit since since Alexander Hamilton created the financial system. I mean,
Sure.
that's the way it's been set up. It's not set up for you to cut a check and open a car dealership and fund everything through cash. You open businesses, you borrow from banks,
Sure.
and you create deficits. And when you create those deficits, they get paid back over a long term. And that's the way that's the way the U.S. economy works, and that's why it's so successful. And that's why the banking system works. And that's what was put in place when Alexander Hamilton designed this. And, the Democrats are trying to stop this. They're trying to say that, we're creating all this debt. Yeah, we have debt. But, have you ever heard once that we can't pay our debt?
Yeah, that's right. So Trump's got a 4-year term. Obviously, he can't run anymore because of there'll be his second term. Does that have any implications? Is that a pro or a con about his presidency?
No, listen, we need him in there to change things and get things back on track and back to balance and back to center. They're out of control. Outside the car industry, there's so many things that are out of control. I don't want to get into politics. You got border issues, you got economic issues, you got inflation issues. We got to get the economy back in balance, and we got to get the American people back to work and moving, making money, borrowing on their homes, buying real estate, investing in their properties, investing in their neighborhoods and their communities, and having jobs that make money so that they can pay their bills and send their children to school and make a better life for the next generation. And that's really what America has been always about, and that's not happening today.
The flip side of that, if we were to see a Harris presidency, from your take, what would that mean?
Well, listen, from an economic cycle, we could spend hours talking about all the damage that has already been done and the damage that I believe is going to continue to get done. And, but we're here to talk about the auto industry. I think it's going to be catastrophic. I think, in 3 to 5 years, you're going to see this industry wiped out, and you're going to, while there'll still be gasoline engines, there'll be, a portion of it, you're going to shrink. And, dealers that are out there today have existing overheads. They have mortgages on their properties. They've purchased blue sky businesses and borrowed money from banks, the way our economy works, to do that, to keep their employees moving and paid every week. And if that cycle comes to an end, it's going to come down crashing hard, and it's going to be catastrophic to this industry, I have to tell you. And the long-term effects are really going to be serious. Yeah.
Will we see an expansion of celebrity motor car in the coming years here? Are you picking up any future?
We've been out searching, but I have to tell you, I think like everyone else in the world right now, we're in a holding pattern. We need to see where this economy is going, and we need to see where this electric vehicle mandate's going. It makes no sense. The infrastructure is still not there. It hasn't been built out.
Right.
And if Maoli gets in and she pushes this mandate and doesn't build the infrastructure, that's going to be another catastrophic issue, because where do these cars get charged? How are these people going to get back and forth to work? And, look what just happened in Florida with these hurricanes and floods.
Yeah.
All of these vehicles they're going to go in the junkyard. They're worthless.
Unbelievable. Yeah. Hundreds of them, if not thousands of them. And,
exactly.
And we saw, under the Biden administration, he said 500,000 charging stations all across America. We're going to allocate $8 billion to it. And I think there's only been 7 that have been installed thus far, right?
Correct.
That's a major problem.
It's a major problem. It would take years to build this infrastructure out, and somewhere along the line, somebody's got to get some logic and bring this mandate back. Electric cars, as I've said in the past, should be a part of the marketplace. They will be a part of the marketplace, but it has to evolve. It has to evolve like the flip phone evolved into the iPhone, and let the market make that evolution. And if they do that and they push this mandate out and they hit the brakes and slow it down, what's going to happen is new innovators and new technology is going to come into the marketplace, like hydrogen and other ways that we can clean energize our industry. No one doesn't not want to clean energize the industry. We all have children and families, and we want clean water and clean air. But we got to do this logically instead of trying to do it politically.
Sure. Well, how do you feel about his vice president's or the vice president pick there?
I think he's a decent pick. You know, there's others out there that could have been picked, but I have to tell you, you know, what you have to do is you have to look at, when you look at a vice president, you know, I look at what happens if something happens to the president, and this person steps in. And I think you know, assuming Trump wins, I think that Vance would do a great job as a president.
Yeah, for sure. Any final words before somebody sets out to go vote? They might be voting today. We're in Atlanta, as you know, and they're voting right now. So.
Absolutely. I think, listen, we got to everyone has to get out there. Anybody that has anything to do with the automotive industry has to get out there and vote, and they have to vote for Trump, because we have to keep this industry alive and keep the people that are in it employed and keep the ball rolling. Yep,
that's a great message. There's many in the industry, I can speak confidently about this, that agree with you. Those that are on the fence, you heard it here, right here. He spelled it out. He made his case, and it was a good one. So Tom Maoli, the president and CEO of Celebrity Motorcar, knows Trump. He's going to be at Mar-a-Lago on election eve. So that's pretty cool. Maybe we can do like some sort of a remote with you there. You know,
we can do a FaceTime. Absolutely.
There you go.
Love to do it.
Great.
Absolutely.
All right. Thanks so much. Really appreciate it. Thanks.
Thanks for watching Inside Automotive with Jim Fitzpatrick.